Chapter 2. The Meaning of Science. We can apply the term science only to a body of knowledge, the certainty of which is apodictic. I define apodictic as that which is demonstrable. This can mean many things. For instance, is it possible to assume that science presupposes causality? What about the scientific method? Is causality assumed in its procedural techniques? Does methodology presume to move from premises? Premises equivalent to cause? Is certainty to be found in what must always be considered process or movement? Is it possible to demonstrate certainty from a meaningful inference? For instance, we ask, does science infer laws from particular facts? Are general laws inherent in premises? If so, what does this mean to an inference which is deductive in nature? All these questions confront us when we attempt to define science. The problem is not whether science is possible, but how is it possible? This will be seen in the need to identify the possibility of science with the validity of synthetic judgments a priori. Whether or not we shall do this depends upon the direction taken in our definitive analysis of the mind of science. The mind of science functions according to its presuppositions, and they are as follows. 1. The perspective of science is determined by its search for order in phenomena. 2. The most important need of science is freedom of inquiry. 3. All dimensions of science are governed by the laws of subjective and objective necessity. 4. Because of its need for the freedom of inquiry, the spirit of science, which is independence of thought, expresses itself most forcibly in originality. 5. Science is without purpose until it possesses explanatory value systems. 6. The circumstance of science is the value condition from which its critical apparatus evolved. 7. The direction assumed by science and its methodology is determined by the nature of the essence of the universal. 8. It is the responsibility of science to establish principles of organization and unity. Science implies knowledge organic in structure. 9. The means of science are brought into being by the attributes of empirically based insight. 10. The moral premises of science are based upon the needs of the human mind. Because of this, science is more than the means of acquiring knowledge. Because of its moral premises, science must concern itself with the consequence of its discoveries. Science is the mind of man at work on his problems. 11. Principles transcend facts in the same manner science enables the mind of values to transcend belief. The principles which underline the methodologies of science require that it serve as the object of its own contemplative process. 12. Science, in its search for truth, finds it in meaning. While it is truth for which science searches, it is the potentiality of the explanatory power of truth which justifies the process of science. The answers of science remain open to the apprehension and determination of yet more advanced degree of truth. The quest of science is the quest of the human mind, namely the need for truth. Intuited truth evolves from empirically based scientific truth, and science demands data as its first step toward the discovery of truth. 13. Science is the source of inspiration for the mind in its search for the base of the intellective process. Science enables the mind to transcend its own limitation and identify with the value potential inherent in scientific knowledge. It is the human mind which must be held accountable for all decisions made in the methodological premise of science. Science achieves its prime and ultimate goal when the essence of the universal is actualized in the human mind. It strives to assist the mind to know by means of understanding cause. Only in this way is it enabled to reason the essence of being. The mind has an irresistible need to know. Science likewise has an irresistible need to make it possible for the mind to know. It is science which seeks to provide the mind with a unified vision of experience. The goal of the human mind is to understand. This means developing its methodologies to the degree that what is seen in fact provides a scientific base for determining potentiality. Science is not able to prove its object when the mind experiences the meaning of the object. It is science which recreates universals and particulars in the human mind. It is for the human mind, as well as by means of the human mind, that science determines the qualitative and quantitative relationships between phenomena. It is mind, using the empirically based insights of science, which structure the competitive dialogues between hypotheses. Sense perception is often imperfect. Science is the means by which the mind functions as the intellective process to correct sense inadequacy. 14. It is reason which directs science in its search for and discovery of the unknown. Science reduces reason to a dependency upon first cause and first principles. 15. Science recognizes no absolute second cause. Cause evolves from universal. Cause extends itself as being through its essence. For science, cause is the source of validated evidence. 16. Causal connections are realizable only in the eventuation of act. 17. It is causal laws which provide the connectives between events. Causal laws imply that the natural order is self-explanatory. 18. Certitude is found only in the potentiality of probability. 19. To coordinate the data of consciousness is to empirically discipline the thought process. The data of consciousness provides science with its first experience of knowing. 20. Science does not move in the demand state of finality. Rather, its momentum is derived from the ongoing search for the potentiality of potentiality. Science is the architect of the potentiality of fact. 21. Science bases its methodologies on principles which evolve from first cause. It is the principle of causality which enables science to be predictive. It is science and its methodologies which make it possible for the intellect to actualize its perspective and intentions. 22. The value system of science is predicated on the value conditions accepted by the human mind. 23. Science is dependent upon value and proportion in the construct of any unity. To determine relationship within a whole is to structure principles of integration, thereby enabling the mind to relate parts with parts and parts to the whole. 24. It is the value condition which permits science to function through its methodologies. Science provides the data foundation out of which value conditions evolve. 25. The predictive abilities of science are controlled by its validating methodologies. 26. Phenomena is the object of science. The relationships which exist between natural phenomena are explained only by the principles which identify natural phenomena and cause. 27. In order for science to explain, it must first experience meaning. Scientific explanation becomes in essence the value judgment. Science explains the unknown by the known. 28. It is within the mind of scientific determination that historical knowledge gains its impetus in the intellective process. The determinism characteristic of all science is metaphysical as well as methodological. 29. To discover the hidden potential in a fact is the goal of the organizational qualities of the methodological structure of science. In the process of correlating facts, science is enabled to see the potentiality of those facts. For science, an indifferent fact is non-existent. Science controls its facts through the systemization and organization of their causal principles. It is science which classifies the facts of experience and incorporates them into the structure of its methodologies. 30. Science values the thought itself as much as the thought process. In the same way, it values the discovery of its potentialities as much as the structuring of methodologies which made the discovery possible. Science provides thought with its organizational patterns. Mode of thought for science is an analysis and summary of the fact. Science orders thought and patterns it for new direction. 31. To interpret universals and particulars, science uses transcendental thought. To experience perceptually, interpretive principles is to have localized cause and its assumptions. 32. Scientific theories are judged only by the standards of objective and subjective validity. They are the approximation of what is true. 33. Theoretical speculation evolves from the validation process, which is an integral part of every theory test. 34. The essence of the real is a quality of the ultimate. Science endeavors to discover the reality which is self-sufficient, that is, in its ultimate form. When science synthesizes knowledge, the real is found in unity. The real is fully realizable only in its potentiality. 35. Science is both inductive and deductive in its methodologies. In the solution of its problems, science depends upon the construct of new methodic theories in order to experience working principles. 36. Cosmology is theory of knowledge in the same manner cosmology is science. 37. A scientific law is a comprehensive whole. The correlation of validated facts serve as causal principles. 38. It is the scientific concept which describes form in matter. It is the process of conceptualization which does not permit form to degenerate and become formulae. Science is the mind of the connectives of concepts. To determine the potentiality of the concept is to actualize the logicality of fact. It is the concept which dissects the fact, searching for the components of its structure. It is science which designs the concept. To unify the object of conceptualization is to experience the fact inherent in its potentiality. 39. The need to recognize rationality in nature is one of the greatest needs of the mind of science. 40. Logic is a built-in construct of science. 41. Before it is possible for science to harmonize beliefs, the mind must have faced up to the need for an expiation of attitudes. 42. Science is the integrator and unifier of all dimensions of human experience. Experience is the test of the concept. Science is a systemization of the inherent structure of the process of conceptualization, the means by which experience fuses experiences into itself. 43. Abstraction, as a method of science, is the only means by which the quality of essence as reality can be actualized. 44. Necessity is actualized by experience. Necessity is the embodiment of reason, the understanding of which is experienced by intelligible modes of thought. 45. All epistemology is scientific in nature. 46. The position that the physical universe is ruled by chance is obsolete. 47. Science is evolutionary in its process of analysis. Science does not establish laws, rather it discovers them. Moreover, its aim is to discover the implicative value meaning inherent in every law. The nature of being is structured by its necessities. It is these immanent qualities which are of prime concern to science. 49. Every conclusion is inherent in its principle. It is impossible to finalize knowledge until its science actualizes ultimates. Many aims have become readily apparent in our listing of the presuppositions of science, and it will be helpful to draw certain conclusions at this point. Science does not operate from an inflexible base. It is a viable thing. Its methodologies, governed by ideas, are continually evolving, changing the perspective of the intellective process. In its search for truth, its predictive sense is constantly moving to the front, recognizing the need, as Du Noy suggests, to classify our knowledge and to establish relations between observable phenomena in order to be able to predict the future in a certain measure and to explain the sequence of phenomena in relation to ourselves. These relations are called laws, and when no exceptions are known, they become scientific principles. Laws or principles always rest on measurements, that is to say, relation of the quantity measured to an arbitrary quantity taken as a unit. Whenever the mind works with relationship, it is confronted by the need for an intellectual activity which is creative. It is within that creative activity that purposive explanations are to be found. Here is the source of the scientific idea. It means that a standard of judgment has been established as a working base. But the intellective process, because it runs on epistemological energy, strives to move beyond its premise. Here is the point at which scientific ideas come into being. These are the ideas which bring understanding of an object and the sense experience of its potentiality. Abstract thought is creative thought, expressing itself by means of the process of conceptualization. It is thought as experience which penetrates reality and expands it. This is the responsibility of conceptualization and its process. End of chapter.